Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's media availability with Premier Susan Holt regarding the First Minister's meeting and the meeting of the New England Governors and Eastern Canadian Premiers. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à ce point de presse virtuel avec la Première ministre Susan Holt concernant la réunion des premiers ministres et la conférence des gouverneurs
Recording in
de la
progress.
Nouvelle-Angleterre et des premiers ministres de l'Est du Canada. Before I turn things over to the Premier, I would just like to ask everyone to ensure their microphones are placed on mute and let you know that interpretation services are available in New Brunswick's two official languages. Alors, les services d'interprétation sont disponibles dans les deux langues officielles de Nouveau-Brunswick. Premier?
Merci beaucoup, Katie. Bonjour tout le monde. Nous avons eu une rencontre productive aujourd'hui avec le Premier ministre du Canada et Premier ministre Carney pour discuter premièrement du budget et aussi certainement le progrès concernant les tarifs. Pour nous autres au Nouveau-Brunswick, nos plus grandes priorités sont les soins de santé et l'abordabilité. Alors, on a fait le point que nous cherchons à accéder à un financement pour les infrastructures de santé afin de moderniser et revitaliser nos installations, alors que nous travaillons à améliorer l'accès aux soins pour les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises à chaque jour. Et aussi, on avait fait le point qu'on a besoin d'une flexibilité dans le financement de l'infrastructure communautaire et provinciale et qu'on veut voir des programmes budgétaires fédéraux qui reconnaissent et qui reflètent nos compétences, nos différences, nos réalités uniques à chaque province. Le bois d'œuvre, certainement, ça joue un rôle majeur ici au Nouveau-Brunswick et j'étais heureux d'entendre du Premier ministre que vont avoir un euh, un nouveau programme, je dirais, puis qu'il a appelé quelque chose de significance pour le secteur, puis avec alors, on attend pour, j'espère, la semaine prochaine d'entendre plus de détails à ce sujet. Mais j'étais satisfait de lui entendre parler et démontrer une urgence à ce dossier-là. Puis c'est toujours important à 7 ans de continuer de se réunir comme le Premier ministre du Canada. Alors, on a vu qu'on va continuer de se réunir dans le commencement de 2026, puis d'une façon régulière pour les prochaines plusieurs mois à cause de la situation. So I'll repeat as much of that as I can remember in English. We had a productive meeting today with the First Ministers, with the Premiers of Canada and Prime Minister Carney, mainly to talk about the federal budget, as well as to talk about the work and the progress on the tariff negotiation. We shared that New Brunswickers' number one priorities, or top priorities, are access to healthcare services and affordability and the cost of living. And so we flagged that we want to tap into health infrastructure funding that can recognize our needs to modernize our health infrastructure, the investments that we're making to improve access to care for New Brunswickers, as well as emphasize the need for flexibility with infrastructure funding for communities and for provinces. That flexibility should recognize the different needs between provinces and our different realities, be they geographic or otherwise. That flexibility, we think, will be key to how provinces need to manage their infrastructure and what we want to see from the federal government. Of course, we talked about softwood lumber. Clearly, New Brunswick is a major player in softwood lumber in Canada, and the tariffs are having a negative impact on our economy. So I was pleased to hear Prime Minister Carney state that a new package is coming that he described as significant. So our industry will be looking forward to hearing more details about that as quickly as possible. We also discussed some other trade relationships collectively, and we were pleased to have the Prime Minister's commitment to continue to engage with the First Ministers, as we had done earlier this year, with regular meetings that will be back together again in the new year because regular communication between all of us and amongst all of us helps us collaborate in the face of the major shifts that we're going through as a country and as an economy that impact New Brunswick and help me make sure that New Brunswick's issues are being heard in Ottawa and that their budget, their programs, and their financing reflect and respond to our needs. With that, I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Premier. We will now proceed to questions from members of the media. Each reporter will get one question and one follow-up, and you have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes. Chaque journaliste aura droit à une question puis une suivie. Vous avez le droit de poser votre question dans la langue officielle de votre choix. We'll go to Adam Harris from Post Media.
Sure. Thanks, Katie, and thanks, Premier. I'd like an update on trade talks with the U.S. Last month, Trump cut off negotiations with Canada. Mark Carney has said he's ready to talk again when the U.S. is ready. But is that good enough for you, or do you want Carney to push to restart things now?
That's a great question, Adam, because you always want to be striking when the iron is hot, and putting in front of the negotiating partner at the right moment when they're ready and maybe at a place where we can most likely expect success and a good reception, but we are also impatient. And every day that we go, particularly with these softwood tariffs, is another day of difficulty for New Brunswick. So I can appreciate the challenge of striking that balance, not pushing against a brick wall, but rather pushing against an open door. And they're slightly closer to that wall or door to be able to see which is which in the moment. I think we have a path forward on the softwood lumber negotiations, and I think that the federal government is going to be looking at the sectoral conversations, but also moving the negotiations of CUSMA up so that those are getting underway in January. We want to see both of those things happen. Certainly in New Brunswick, our priority is to see progress on the softwood lumber negotiations as quickly as possible.
Thanks. And a follow-up, it's a provincial budget question. After your government revealed last week its Q2 numbers in the $835 million deficit, Don Monahan with the PCs, their finance critic, said your government should potentially look at reducing the size of the civil service like the Carney government's doing in Ottawa. Is that something you consider?
Well, it was interesting to hear that suggestion coming from Don, given the growth in the civil service under the Conservative government just, a year ago. But it is absolutely something that we're looking at right now. We're always looking at ways to be more efficient, to deliver services in a modern way that responds to the needs of New Brunswickers. We're looking at the kind of things that we should stop doing because we need to put investments in certain places, and that means trade-offs and tough choices. So everything is being looked at in the interests of having the best, most responsible financial situation possible while responding to what New Brunswickers need for them to manage their finances and their life here in New Brunswick as best possible.
Thank you.
Alex Villeneuve, Radio-Canada.
Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions avancées concernant l'idée envisagée il y a quelques semaines d'interdire le débranchement d'énergie NB auprès des clients qui n'ont pas payé, c'est-à-dire que leur couper l'électricité si un contrat en souffrance? On avait ouvert la porte à changer ça quelques semaines. Est-ce que ça a bougé?
Oui, on a parlé avec Énergie Nouveau-Brunswick à ce sujet. C'était quelque chose qui était proposé, je pense, durant je peux jamais souvenir du mot pour audit.
Audi.
Oh God, mais c'est pourquoi. Alors oui, ils ont fait le travail avec l'audit sur la situation l'hiver puis le printemps dernier. Puis une des recommandations était une création d'un comité pour les clients vulnérables. Puis cette comité a fait du travail. Je pense que s'ils n'ont pas finalisé leurs recommandations, ce sujet était là dans les recommandations. Puis nous demandons à Énergie Nouveau-Brunswick et à eux autres accélérer ce travail, nous présenter c'est quoi les décisions, c'est quoi les opportunités, parce que le débranchement durant l'hiver, c'est quelque chose qui nous inquiète, particulièrement au sujet des personnes vulnérables. Alors, euh, j'imagine que quelque chose s'en vient dans les prochaines bouts de temps.
Mais est-ce que c'est réaliste, là? L'hiver commence. Est-ce que c'est réaliste pour le mois de décembre, janvier prochain, que ça soit instauré et clair que Énergie NB ne peut plus débrancher ses clients vulnérables?
Mais s'il y a une recommandation claire et un programme clair, la question c'est si ça a besoin de changement législatif ou non. Mais s'il n'y a pas besoin de changement législatif, c'est quelque chose que Énergie Nouveau-Brunswick peut choisir de faire. Ben, on peut agir rapidement. Euh, et on a la discussion à démontrer qu'il y a du travail qui s'est déjà fait sur ce sujet. Alors, la possibilité de faire une décision dans les prochaines semaines, c'est tout à fait possible.
Je comprends, là, je me trompe pas en voyant en vous quelqu'un qui veut interdire ça rapidement.
Mais moi, je veux protéger nos vulnérables et je suis certain que c'est la même chose avec Énergie Nouveau-Brunswick. Il y a pas quelqu'un qui veut rendre les Néo-Brunswickois dans un environnement sans avoir de l'énergie durant l'hiver. Clairement, il y a toujours des exceptions, des situations où c'est quelque chose de différent que ça. Et on doit être reconnaissant du fait qu'on ne devrait pas mettre une politique en place pour les exceptions, mais on doit être reconnaissant de toutes les situations différentes et les besoins et trouver une solution qui protège les Néo-Brunswickois, leur santé, leur vie, leur chez-soi, au même temps qu'ils protègent l'énergie de Nouveau-Brunswick d'être mal pris. Alors, je suis certain qu'on peut trouver quelque chose qui va protéger les Néo-Brunswickois mieux qu'au moment.
Merci. Jacques Poitras, CBC.
On the federal health infrastructure funding, do you have an idea yet what to do with it? Is it specific kinds of projects? Will it just be money that will sort of lower the province's cost of things you would have done anyway? Like, what do you think it will go for?
Thanks, Jacques. Some of that we were trying to get clarity from the Prime Minister last week because you're aware, I think, that we are doing a major modernization of the systems and the technology that has held us back in terms of our health system. The fact that all of our hospitals are on different systems, that all of the different pieces of the health system do not connect. So a patient has to repeatedly tell their story and tell their history to healthcare professional after healthcare professional after healthcare professional and can't get the best possible connected care. You would have seen that connected care as part of our provincial health plan. So we were talking to the Prime Minister about whether digital infrastructure was considered in that funding, and we look forward to getting more details on what exactly that funding entails. There are absolutely some projects that are currently in our budget, things that we had planned to do that we now look forward to the opportunity to potentially defray some of those costs in partnership with the federal government. And there are also some things that maybe we didn't think we would or could do, maybe because they were too expensive, that now this opens up the possibility to reconsider whether that is something that we would want to add into the mix because the opportunity to have partnered investment exists. So it's kind of all of those things. We're looking at their support for the infrastructure that needs work. We have a lot of old health infrastructure. It needs updating, renovating, modernizing. We have a need to bring our health system into the 21st century. And then there are some new opportunities that this funding could push us to pursue should the terms be right with the federal government.
My follow-up, I can't believe I'm asking you this, but would you like to see a federal election or would you like to see the budget passed tonight?
I can't believe you're asking me that either. I've got a bit of election fatigue myself. I think this budget has some good things in it for New Brunswick. I don't think there's a lot of New Brunswickers that want to go to the polls in the middle of winter. We know that ties up resources and energy, and I think folks want us to get on with it. We're in the middle of a trade war. We need to put our focus on growing our economy. I want to make sure I can deliver good paying jobs for New Brunswickers, a health system that serves them, and an affordable life here, and another whatever it is, 5 or 6 weeks of election takes us away from what New Brunswickers need, which is government that's serving them and acting to make things better.
Thank you. Alex Allen, Acadia Broadcasting. Nick Moore, CTV. Suzanne Lapointe, Global News.
Hi, can you share a little bit more about what the New England representatives had to say at the meeting? What did they share?
Thanks for the question, Suzanne. We had some specific agenda items with the New England governors and commissioners, specifically to talk about energy, actually. That was where we spent a good portion of our time sharing what different jurisdictions are developing in terms of energy from a generation perspective, needs, research, potential for some resiliency and redundancy connections, as you know. And actually, I'll bring these 2 points together. The Prime Minister and our FMM talked about, let me get the words right, a big emphasis on interties. And we want to make sure that we have all the connections we need to Nova Scotia, to PEI, to Quebec, and into New England to make sure that if we have excess power, we have markets for it. And if we're short of power, then we have places that we can pull it from so that New Brunswickers always know they can rely on the system that we have and it being as affordable as possible. We certainly talked about the trade situation. We heard from our neighbors about some of the challenges they're facing in tourism, the challenges they're facing with impacts, certainly in Maine, where we saw up at Woodlands they've stopped receiving pulp from us here in New Brunswick, and so we talked about some of the pressure that the tariffs and the current trade situation is placing, and everyone's agreement that we want to move to renegotiate CUSMA quickly to try to get this behind us as we work through the sector-specific tariffs as well. Yeah, we just talked about that dynamic of the fact that the Canada-US relationship is at one of its lowest points in a very long time, but that this relationship is one that is centuries old, that has seen us through peacetime and wartime, that we are long-time neighbors, friends, family, so many different connections across these borders that while we are in a low moment with this current administration, we're going to play the long game and do what's in the best interests of New Brunswick, and those interests are shared in New England.
I'm glad you brought up.
And just as I said that, if I may, there's a rainbow that's appearing over Signal Hill, like right out my window. It's like, I don't know what, it's a signal that somebody wants us to get through this divisiveness and back to a point of unity. It's really pretty, actually.
Amazing. I'm glad you brought up Maine and tourism, because in June, the governor of Maine kind of came to tell Canadians to come visit New England, and we've seen through the numbers that has not happened. I sensed there was a little bit of surprise for American politicians this spring, seeing how much anger Canadians had. Do you think they get it now? Do you think they get what a fever pitch this has reached?
Well, I do. I think it was Governor Phil Scott who was co-chairing the meetings who actually asked us all quite directly, what can we do? What can we do in Vermont, in his case, to tell Canadians, we miss you, we want you to come back. How can we get them back? Is it a marketing campaign? What is it? And we tried to convey to him that there's not a lot that Vermonters can do, because New Brunswickers, we don't hold this against the people of Maine or the people of Massachusetts. We know the problem lies in the White House and in Donald Trump. And it's not a beef that we have against our neighbors in New England that keeps us from going across the border. So we talked about ways they could demonstrate allyship. And listen, Governor Scott is one of those who has been speaking out against the president, voting against the president as a Republican. We've seen the same kind of allyship from Governor Healy, from Governor Mills, as you mentioned, in Maine. They haven't been afraid to tell the president exactly what his policies are doing to the people of their states. And I know New Brunswickers and Canadians appreciate that, appreciate folks who are raising their voices without fear of consequence for what's in the best interests of their people. But we said New Brunswickers are choosing to stay home, and we really appreciate the fact that Americans continue to choose to come here, and that we saw a significant amount of American tourists in our season this year. We appreciate that. We're going to get through this. It's a blip, but all of us are trying to look ahead, and hold on and look at the long arc of the relationship between our two countries, that will carry us through this difficult moment.
Thank you.
Emily Baring-Kadloff, the Canadian Press.
Hi, just to piggyback on that, earlier the governor of Vermont talked about how tariffs can be quite punishing. In Nova Scotia, the mayor of Boston was recently here and talked a lot about tariffs. I'm curious if it seems as if your counterparts in the US suggest that perhaps they're on Canada's side, maybe in a fight against their own federal administration.
Well, it's not just a suggestion, it's something that we've seen tangibly, as they've, we saw folks voting against the package in order to send it to the Supreme Court, that this wasn't something legal. We've seen, whether it's from Governor Scott or others, expressing the ways that the tariffs are hurting their states, and certainly the impact that tourism has had. So it's, I think they're realizing what we have learned in federal negotiations is that there aren't a lot of influencers around Trump, that what states say and care about is not important to him, and that we've got to work other channels to get back to the open and free trading relationship that has served both of our countries really well. And in the meantime, Canada is out there finding new partners, and strengthening our own commerce so that we are better protected from this kind of volatility in the future.
And Premier, is there a particular area that New Brunswick feels these tariffs or feels these trade relationships strain the most? I know we've talked a little bit about energy already, but is there an area that this really hits the province?
Yes, number one is in softwood lumber. So we have seen layoffs in the lumber sector. We have people who are producing products like cabinets and value-added wood products where they're seeing a dramatic decrease in their American orders and clients. We saw a curtailment at Arbeck that lasted 6 weeks that has a real impact on the employees there. And so the softwood lumber tariffs are the most damaging to New Brunswick's economy right now. And if they continue, the impact on 2026 is going to be tangible and measurable in terms of actual points of GDP lost, as well as the jobs lost and the people impacted. So that's number one. The other tariffs around autos and steel and aluminum, those are also impacting New Brunswick because of our role in the supply chain. There's a lot of companies here that do a lot of business that either rely on some of those imports or they do the business for the auto sector and others. And so they are seeing challenging times as well. And we are doing everything we can to make sure that we're all buying local as much as possible, buying Canadian as much as possible, finding new opportunities and new uses for our wood products and others, and finding new clients in Europe and Africa and Asia and beyond.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I wish I could see that rainbow behind you.
I want to turn around my camera because it's gotten so freaking bright right now. It's like, I don't think I've ever seen such a, let me see if I can do this. I don't know if this is going to work because I'm not exaggerating. It's like, am I going to be able to do this? No, it's probably not going to. It's too bright for that.
Bright.
I know. So I'm really sorry because it's even a double rainbow now. There's like a second one that's reflected and it's, Britt will take a picture. Maybe I'll put it on my Facebook.
I would love to say I'd take your word for it, but unfortunately I'm in the media and I simply cannot.
Yeah. I wish there was a way. It's like it comes just beside Signal Hill. It goes right down into the like Crayola boxes. It's distracting me from this important interview. I'm sorry, Emily. Emily, good to hear from you again, actually. It's been a long time.
It has. Nice to speak with you again.
All right, and that concludes today's press conference. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Merci tout le monde. Voilà la fin de notre conférence de presse.
Merci tout le monde. Bonjour.